fingerprint like my name was search warrant.
Hey guys, I just got this vape from Treacherous Tony. It tastes pretty nasty, but I look cool with it, right? You guys should give it a try. Be cool like me.
Nah, you look pretty stupid. And if you get caught with that thing, you're gonna be in big trouble. Besides, I heard Treacherous Tony is that lame guy who likes to come around and hang around little kids. If you're hanging with him, you must be lame too. Come on, guys, let's get out of here before we get in trouble like Cooper too.
Oh no! Sergeant, be safe!
You kids get out of here. Cooper, tell me where you got that from.
I won't snitch.
I don't see what's so funny. Vape pens like that can lead to harder drugs and cause more problems for you. They're not appropriate for little kids such as yourself. So I suggest you do the right thing and tell me who you got it from.
Treacherous Tony gave it to me.
Tristan, I want you to take me there now. Are you?
Yes, I'm Treacherous Tony. What do you want?
Do you have a card? And why are you selling this to kids?
Yeah, I got a medical marijuana card. I don't sell it to kids. I give it to them.
You give it to them? What kind of an adult are you?
It's a vape pen. What's the big deal?
Are you kidding me? The big deal?
Get out of here, Sergeant No Safe.
Sometimes I just wanna... Yep, I think I will.
All right. I give up. I won't do it again.
That's right, you won't. You're off to jail. Put your hands up and come with me. Remember, kids, what's made for adults aren't suitable for kids. Those vape pens may look cool, but they are not good for you. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Oh no! Sergeant, be safe!
Subscribe now.
Let's go start the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Black and Blue. I am your host. I'm Coach Clee. I'm your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker's favorite baker. And I'm here hosting another show again. We go live weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on this channel. And on this channel, we interview law enforcement officers and first responders who are either rookie, seasoned, or retirees. And we talk about their experiences, we talk about their publications, and we talk about their trainings. And we got a special treat going ahead for you today. This platform is on, we're streaming on 5 different platforms. We're streaming on 5 different platforms live. So we're on one on LinkedIn, 2 on Facebook, and 2 on YouTube. So if you're looking for a shout out, you're gonna have to put it in the comment section. That's the only way I'm gonna see who's here, and you'll get that shout out that you're looking for. This is interactive, like I said, so if you have a question or comment, make sure you put that in the comment section too, and we will acknowledge that and we will answer it to the best of our ability, all right? This platform has been running for a long time now, and it is sponsored by One Way Publishing. One Way Publishing, their motto is they can turn a mere thought and turn it into a book that's bought. So if you haven't already seen, there's a couple books behind me I wrote, and there's a couple other clients that wrote books as well, and they wrote books through One Way Publishing, and that's the way to make that thing happen. One Way Publishing also sponsors the Sergeant Be Safe commercials as well, the little skits. You saw one of them right before they came in. Jamon's on here. Thank you for tuning in. Please tag, like, and share, and they will be featured throughout the course of this interview, this conversation. We're going to have a lot of fun while we're doing it. But speaking of One Way Publishing here, I'm going to give them a little grift real quick. Make sure you guys check this out.
Publishing. Have you ever wanted to explain something, tell a story, or leave a piece of you behind? Have you ever wanted to write your own book, but not specifically know how to do it? Well, get ready. One Way Publishing's here. We can turn a mere thought into a book that's bought. People need to learn from you. They need to hear that story. Kids need to read that book. Imagine if you wrote your own children's book and get to read it to your kids. Here at One Way Publishing, we can get your fiction, nonfiction, fantasy, instructional, what have you, done. All at a reasonable price and definitely a reasonable time frame. And if you don't believe me, ask Sergeant Be Safe. He's working on his right now. He's definitely writing the best chapter of his life. Make sure you check out his cartoon skits that air on the podcast Black and Blue.
As Sergeant Be Safe said, that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And there it is. One Way Publishing turns a mere thought into a book that's bought. And Sergeant Be Safe, I'm excited to say the first Sergeant Be Safe children's book is gone through. It's still the first draft. It's got a lot of editing. It's a little backed up. It's a little bit more work than I anticipated, but it's coming. It's going to hopefully hit the streets, and we're going to be hitting up a bunch of camps this summer. Also, I am excited that season 2 of the Sergeant Be Safe cartoons come out in June. Not only that, but we got a special treat for you guys in June as well. I want to give it away, but I'm not going to give it away just yet. You guys are going to have to stay tuned. We got special guests. Actually, we don't have any lineup for June. So if you're interested, I haven't developed a schedule or put a list of names of who's going to be on the show together for June yet. So if you're interested, reach out to either workwithclee.com or reach out on here, and we'll get that together. I'll be traveling a lot in the month of June, so therefore I didn't come up with a schedule to put that out there. All right, got to give Glenn Topping a grift here. He's a former police officer in Broward County, Florida. He wrote a couple books. The Hurt is one of them. He was on the show a few weeks ago. He was on the first season of Cops itself, Look a Quarter. And while he was on here, he gave me a bunch of these books, and I'm giving him a shout out for these books. The Hurt and the Extremists. The Making of a Monster. You see that? I know the camera's a little off. And Operation 1600. So shout out to him. I believe he's got 9 books that he's authored. So check him out and check his website out. And challenge point of the day, one of my favorite, the Arrowhead, Susquehanna Township Indians. It's the front. Can you see it? And the back, give them a little shout out. Got 3 K9 dogs on there as well, their names and the logo on there. Challenge point of the day. So make sure you guys check that out. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring our guest to the stage here. I'm excited to have him. We've been talking back and forth for a little while now, trying to get our schedules aligned together, and they aligned together. The stars have aligned together today, and he's going to be here. He is a 24-year retiree from the LAPD. He's a Navy vet. He's also 12 years police misconduct investigator with the Department of IA, Internal Affairs, if you guys are aware of it. He's prosecuted, worked on the side of the chiefs. He's also worked on the side of the defendants, police officers, where he's defended them. He has experience from both sides of the coins. He's also teaching at Savage Training Group, where some of you are aware that we had Scott Savage on here a couple months ago, and he's affiliated with him as well. And he does a lot of teachings with them. He's got his Juris Doctrine, and he's going to discuss so many different things and so many different topics here. And I'm excited to bring him to the stage. And without further ado, Sergeant, be safe.
Hello, this is Sergeant Be Safe. And I want to welcome all you viewers and our very special guest to Black and Blue. So get your questions ready and enjoy the show.
Subscribe now.
Film Pack.
All right, we had to get the griffs out of the way. I know how you guys like some of them. Some of you guys are like, can we do without them? But we got them out the way. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm bringing them to the stage. Marlon Marrache. Marlon, are you there?
What's going on, Clee, man? Thanks for having me, man. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it. What an intro.
Oh, thank you for making yourself available. I'm excited to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Let's go down a trip down memory lane, why don't we? I was born and raised in Lima, Peru. So I'm from South America. So I came here in the 80s, had to learn how to speak English, adapt to a whole different culture. And man, it was quite a ride. So that's where I came from. Love sports, fell in love with American football. Of course, we call it football. Soccer is what we call it. Went to high school out here and, just kind of implemented myself and, acquainted myself with life here in the United States. And went to high school out here in the San Fernando Valley, in the 818 in Los Angeles, California. And at some point, I dropped out of high school, which is an interesting story. It's been a long journey. I dropped out of high school, absent father, a lot of challenges that came up in my life. And somehow, some way, I decided at the age of 24 to join the United States Navy. Okay. And so when I joined the Navy, I realized when I went to Great Lakes, is what we call Great Mistakes, Illinois. I was there for 3 months in October. It was like 10 degrees, and I told myself, wow, what am I doing here with a whole bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds? But you know what? The experience, the fact that I was away from home, knowing that I wanted to go home so bad and how much family really meant, those challenges, those obstacles just gave me more strength. And I did 3 years and I did not want to re-enlist. And that's when I started looking. I think one of the questions you're going to ask me, what is it? Why did I become a police officer? So that's where it all started. So, okay. So a little bit of road. We can tap into more of the road, but yeah, it's been a long road, and happy to be here.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so that must be extreme, going from Peru to the West Coast to 10-degree weather. Did your body just go into shock after you felt that cold?
Let me tell you something, man. When we were standing at attention, and like half of us were just shaking, you can tell our DI or drill instructor was like, man, I can tell you guys from the West Coast, man, because this is perfect football weather. And of course, we're just shaking and shaking and shaking. Yeah, no, for sure. It was nothing that I've ever experienced. I mean, for us out here in the West Coast, let me tell you something, man. Less than 60, we put on a jacket. Like at 58, 55, go get a jacket.
Wow. I believe it. I understand. I'm sorry. Overnight, last night, I think it dropped down to 52. And it felt good for me. I had the windows open and everything. That's good sleeping weather.
I can only imagine where you're at, man. You start talking 20s and 30s, folks just can't. Us folks out here, we just can't handle that kind of stuff, there, Clee.
Understandable. So after you started feeling the cold effects and being enlisted in the Navy, and by the way, Army leads the way. But besides that, is that when you got the burning desire to join the law enforcement, to become, you answer the call for LEO?
My best friend, one of my best friends, that we surfed and we worked together. We would just, so let me kind of take you back a little bit. So between the ages of 18 to 24, all I did was just surf, hang out, go to clubs, and just work out every single day with one of my best friends. It just so happens that that best friend is the one who was looking into getting to the LAPD. You know what? He didn't say anything about like the sheriffs. He didn't say anything about any other agency. He just said, you know what? I wanna do a ride along with the LAPD, because he happened to work at a hospital as a parking manager, and he had this customer that would come in all the time and would encourage him, hey, you want to do a ride along? Hey, why don't you come on the job? Because it's something that interests you. And so he went on a ride along, and from there on, man, he was all pumped up.
Wow.
How does that affect me? Well, I can tell you that when you're young, your influences of your friends are probably going to be the strongest. And so I started thinking to myself, I don't want to re-enlist. I don't want to make my a career in the Navy. And this is something that I wanted to do. Granted, I had my fears, I had my concerns. And once I applied, and once I saw him, what he was experiencing, because he's got 2 years on me, everything just, all those fears and all those concerns turned into motivation and dedication. And I wanted to do it. And here we are, 24 years later. So I owe a lot of my decision making to become a law enforcement officer to my best friend, which, by the way, I retired before he did, and he's about to retire in about I think he's got less than 4 years before he pulls the pin.
Okay. Well, shout out to him, and shout out to him for getting you to answer the call and joining this profession in 24 years later. So therefore, I know he's one of the ones that kind of gave you the burning desire. Would you consider him a mentor and influencer to someone after you got in the position to help you mold you into the person that you are today?
In some ways, for sure. I wouldn't have the success that I behold today. The experiences that I have today has a lot to do with him pretty much influencing me to come on the job. But throughout my career, there's one command staff officer, a commander in particular, who really honed in on me when I became a sergeant. So when you promote to sergeant, that's when you really have a lot of influence on your subordinates, on your officers, right? And so I was a sergeant for 15 years. I got promoted to sergeant in January of 2007, and I retired 15 years later as a sergeant.
Okay.
And so during my time as a sergeant is when I got into, and I'm sure we're going to get into my experiences, all about discipline. For whatever reason, that's something just kind of drew myself into knowing the fact that, hey man, there's officers out there that are bad actors, and there's really good officers that for some reason really get the short end of the stick. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in terms of being fair, impartial. Right. I should say impartial, right? With discipline. But my one commander was the one that really influenced me and said, hey, Marlon, you know what? At some point he told me, you need to let your politics and your egos aside, because it's never about you. It's always about the community. It's always about, it has nothing to do with you. So whatever you do in your career, don't ever make it about yourself.
Gotcha. That's good advice. Good advice. So your experiences before you became sergeant, while you were working, did you work just patrol those years, or did you work in any other divisions with law enforcement?
I was a patrol dude for 5, 6, 7 years. You know, it's what we call see the man, see the woman. AKA push the sled. You know what it's like. I pushed the sled. We went to a radio call, got all my experience there. But I always branched off to do other jobs as a police officer. At some point, I wanted to know and pretty much explore other avenues. For example, as a police officer, I had an assignment where I worked the gun unit. So I was pretty much, hustling and bustling with doing search warrants and going after people who just, either possessed legal guns or they bought illegal guns. So that was a cool job.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Other jobs, risk management, so a lot of admin jobs, only to kind of address a lot of to be flexible, to have that flexibility with my daughter when she was born, and have more of a set schedule as opposed to in patrol where you're working. You know how it is. I mean, at some point you're going to work nights, you're going to work days, and you got to bid for days, and so on and so forth. So, pretty much patrolling just a lot of little specialized units and some admin units as well.
Gotcha. And so after working those few years of patrol, then you got promoted to sergeant. You said that's when you became more influential. How did you become more influential as sergeant? What are some of the experiences that you had?
Well, of course, right when I made sergeant and went straight to the field as a patrol supervisor, that's when I really noticed, right? And it hit me that, you know what, now you really got to manage a scene here. You really have to pretty much provide that leadership because everybody's looking to you. And what I did is before I actually promoted to sergeant, I actually went back out on the field because I knew that my name was coming up for a promotion.
Right.
And so I had to familiarize myself because I haven't been in the field in 3 years prior to making sergeant. So I did myself a favor and got myself acclimated with all these patrol procedures. So the transition was pretty smooth. After a year and a half, I transferred over to the jail division. We actually had a jail, which I didn't like at all as a sergeant. I did that for 3 months, and I got out of there and went to South Bureau to go work for this commander, where I got to know him pretty well, and we started this community program.
Okay. And
this community program lasted for about a year and a half, and that's when it all hit. Is, you know what? Why don't you get into discipline? And somehow, some way, I started reminiscing about my days in the Navy. And in the Navy, I actually prepare cases for court martials and captain's mass.
Okay.
That's what I did in the Navy. I was in the aircraft carrier. I chalked and chained for a little bit, and I had to strike for a rate. So once I had to strike for an assignment for a rate, I got myself as a legalman. So I just started telling myself, you know what, I want to get into this discipline stuff. I had an opportunity to become a defense rep, working officer rep section, and that's when you started really getting to know about these disciplinary issues, which, by the way, the community doesn't know. A lot of the public doesn't know. So one of the things that, as I reflect now, is how are we supposed to have public trust if we don't let the public know what happens inside? And the other thing is, and you know this, what's going on in today's society with police is that we preach and talk about transparency. Well, if we're going to talk about transparency, then let's really talk about what goes inside and how is it that we discipline our own.
Right. Absolutely. So let's jump right into it. So you got the bug itself from the Navy itself, writing.
I got the bug.
Writing the paperwork for court martials or inquiries or whatever it's called for the Navy. I know it's
in the Army. It's called the Article 15. Is that what it is?
Yes. I know a couple. I have a couple friends that are familiar with that.
Yeah, you and I wouldn't know nothing about that, but we know some friends.
No. I think the time of limitation, statute of limitations have ran out on some of my friends. So
yes,
I'll bring them on one day and we'll talk about that.
However, the statute is gone.
Yes, yeah. So you got the bug for that, and then you started to get into discipline with law enforcement. How did that open your eyes, and what kind of experiences can you share with us? I know you teach most of that now.
Well, if we're going to talk about discipline, the unique part about the Los Angeles Police Department is that we actually have our own way of disciplining. Right? Okay. I guess it's better to say we have our own way of going through this process.
Okay.
When an officer is brought up on alleged misconduct.
Okay.
And so we have this border rights hearing. It's a hearing. It's like a tribunal hearing. So what basically happens is that if you're facing serious allegations of misconduct, the chief of police pretty much says, you know what, these allegations are so serious that I'm going to direct you to this border rights hearing, this tribunal hearing. However, I'm going to recommend termination, but I'm going to leave it up to this board, this panel, which is a 3-member panel, to pretty much determine your fate. And when I say your fate, I'm talking about basically it's like it's tribunal. It's like I wouldn't say it's a full-blown civil trial, but it is a trial. So you have the prosecution, the department. That's the role that I played in a prosecutorial role, which is what it is. I mean, I'm representing the chief of police, and if you're being brought up on false statements or serious allegations, we're pretty much trying to prove to the board members that, you know what, you're a bad actor and you're a liar and you're going to get fired for it. And the defense puts on their case. You bring in testimony for the board members to hear. You bring in evidence for them to examine. And at some point, they're going to pretty much analyze and examine and come up with some findings. And if you're found guilty on one allegation, then you move over to the penalty phase. During the penalty phase, there is a package review and there's also character witnesses. Character witnesses can come in to speak on the behalf of the accused employee.
Right.
And once that is done, they'll deliberate again and come up with a recommended penalty. So my experience in doing about 30 plus of these, I can tell you about 5 of them were righteous terminations. And what I like to always tell the audience is that it's not so much that we should be honing in on the 5 that were bad actors, because they were liars. They lied. You don't want a liar and a bad actor in your department. We can all agree to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
What really should be the eye opener is what happened to this other 25 voter rights hearing, Marlon.
Right.
And what I can tell you from experience is that at that point, I'm always to say that we got it wrong. And when I say that we got it wrong because it just didn't belong at this level.
Okay.
In other words, when you do something wrong, right? When you are alleged with some misconduct, not every alleged misconduct is serious. You know this. I mean, if you violate policy or you do something that's so unbecoming conduct of an officer, not everything has to be so serious. And I think what happens by the way, 18,000 agencies throughout the United States. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So out of 18,000 agencies in the United States, we only have one that's unique in this particular process. I can only imagine those little agencies where if they see something that they believe, when I say they, meaning command staff, where it's something so minor, right? They'll treat it because of who you are and the reputation that you have. They might treat you as like, well, let's just fire this guy.
Yeah.
So that's where internal affairs, in my opinion, gets, a bad reputation. Is because people think that you're after you and you have this stigma that, IA is out to get you. And I've always wondered that after doing this for, 12, 15 years now, why does everybody always like talk bad about IA? Well, I'm going to tell you why. It's because a lot of times they treat you as if you did something malicious or you did something so awful,
right,
horrifying, egregious, right? Outrageous, extreme. And when in reality, after you get done investigating, which is one of the reasons why Scott, hired me, once you're done investigating, when no stone goes unturned and you do everything, you start realizing, you know what, it's not really that big of a deal. Come on, it's Clee. Clee wouldn't do something like that. Right. I've known Clee for 10 years. And unfortunately, because there's so many agencies, across the nation that we're just trying to get things better. And there's a lot of work to be done to try to even out. And I suppose one day I won't be so bad.
Right. Understandable. I know I grew up on a lot of cop movies where in the movie itself, you hear, IA is going to be crawling down your back and they're going to turn your life upside down. Don't trust IA. They're the cops that arrest the cops. And it gets a bad rep itself. And in retrospect, actually working the real life instead of watching movies and believing that it's what happens on TV is the true deal. You see IA is how you wean out Ones that made mistakes get the proper punishment, but the ones that should not be in this occupation, the ones that will cause trouble, the bad apples, the ones that make national news and cause a bunch of trouble for all of us, you can mitigate some of that before it becomes a bigger problem with proper investigations. Would you agree?
Absolutely. What it all comes down to is learning how to do an internal affairs investigation. And so where you want to get your experience more than anything is probably I've been a detective. So if you've been a detective in the past, you probably got a head start on someone who just became a sergeant and probably doesn't even know how to investigate.
Right. Okay. All right. So you worked. What kind of experiences or what kind of stories can you share with us? I know you probably can't go into detail, but working on the side of the chief to investigate other officers through your 12-year course of working.
Well, I got stories. Oh, I can share. Statute of limitations just ran out. Wow. I can tell you that the majority of the cases that were facing termination is always off duty. Always.
Oh, wow.
Always. Yeah, man. You know what? Things that you do off duty, that's what's going to get you in trouble. Because if you really think about it, things that happen on duty. Now, the panel members is 3 panel members. Traditionally, you have 2 command staff officers and a civilian, who normally is an attorney. But now you have the option to have 3 civilian board members, who, by the way, they've done this for the last 2 years. A lot of officers that get sent to a board of rights have chosen a civilian board panel. Only because they feel as though they've been very lenient. In other words, there's more lenient than there is command staff officers, which I can see, why you would make that choice. But even with command staff officers, you're going to have about, 30 to 40 years of experience. Right. So when they start hearing about, look, you know what, you did this, and tactically you didn't do that, and this is what happened on this particular radio call, and this is the incident you did, and they start thinking to themselves, okay, all that, we're very lenient and flexible with all that. I get that. I just need to know that you're not lying, especially with body-worn video. Now that there's body-worn video, there's not really much. I mean, look, if you're facing allegations of misconduct and you're watching body-worn video, fall on the sword and say what you got to say, and chances are you're going to get adjudicated and maybe take suspension, right? Depending on the type of misconduct that you're facing. Right. But I can tell you, what would stick out the most out of all the cases? I want to say probably I had one where it actually happened on duty where I don't know why, man. I don't know why he decided to go to court, or he was at court in the morning at one location, and he didn't want to be excused. So when he decided when the district attorney says, we don't need you anymore, you be excused, he's like, well, you know what, is it okay if I stay, or you let him know that I'm going to stay? She's like, I don't need you anymore, you got to go. It just so happens that he had afternoon court. He had afternoon traffic court, be in traffic court. The problem is that he called the afternoon traffic court liaison and said, I'm at criminal courts in the morning and I haven't been dismissed. Now, of course, when they asked him, why would you call the afternoon court? And he just made up a whole bunch of stuff, Lee. I mean, this dude just went and told you a whole different story. And this is all pre-body worn. I mean, I'm taking you back like 15 years ago. 11, 12 years ago or something like that. But he made up the story and it just didn't make no sense at all. And I basically, the motive and the theory that we got behind it is that he just did not want to stay. It was on a Friday, and he did not want to go to traffic court in the afternoon. He wanted to make any excuse that he could so he can get out and take off and go to Vegas for the weekend. Now, the problem with doing so is that he involved the district attorney's office. And that particular DA, right, that deputy DA, he calls and says, hey, listen, I need to know if you can cover up for me. And she completely flipped out, called the bosses, they round table it. Next thing you know, the chief of police knows, and it comes down to and here we are at border rights. Man, that's one that kind of stood out the most. Yeah. Another one that I had was off duty. I had we have this one. He goes to a wedding, gets completely all liquored up, all sauced up. He's wearing, let's see, he's wearing khakis, loafers, white shirt with a tie, and a sports coat. He gets on the left-hand lane, makes a left against a red, and just plows into two cars. His car ends up in an embankment. Airbags deploy, smoke, you name it. Dude decides to run out, just take off and run through the parking lot and goes home. So when he goes home, he's thinking to himself, and he's flushing his face with water, going, man, you know what? I think I left my gun in my car. So he decides to go back. Now he's wearing gym shorts and a T-shirt with flip-flops, and he goes back, and this dude was just basically he blew 22s. And he tells so there's officers at scene. There's there's traffic officers at scene doing what they got to do. They ask him, hey, is this your car? He's like, yep, I'm an LAPD officer, and I left my gun there. Oh, you did? Okay, cool. And you can tell in the recording, the officer was trying to help him out. How many drinks did you have? Did you have anything to drink tonight? Is what they asked him. He goes, I had two shots of vodka, 3 ounces at home. He goes, you know what? I'm going to ask you again. Did you have anything to drink tonight, sir? He goes, yep. 2 shots of vodka, 3 ounces at home. And next, the guy blows 22s. That whole story just went everywhere. And here we are at border rights. He testified, and it didn't sit well. So
I bet, yeah.
Just these 2 incidents alone, as you can see, for whatever reason, sometimes if you just fall on the sword and tell the truth, chances are you're probably not going to get terminated.
Interesting enough, yeah. And to say the least, like you said, you would think that there'd be some grandiose story or something that would make headlines. Right out, like as soon as I'm expecting to hear stories that'll be like, make me do the Home Alone stance, and then I mean it's basic simple things where I mean in the moment I guess it makes sense to that person, but in long term you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna have to swallow this one and do the right thing and figure it out later on.
Yeah, you could imagine the second incident, the second border rights that I told you about. Can you imagine if they had body worn video? They would have had the dude all.
Oh yeah,
looking up and just tossing and turning. My understanding is when he arrived at scene, he could not even stand. I mean, he was buzzing back and forth so bad that they had to sit him down. So wow. I suppose maybe that would have helped him, because if through discovery while preparing for the board, his defense attorney would have definitely showed a video and said, look, man, you know what? This is what you said. This is what you did. Here's your chance to come clean. Chances are you're probably not going to get terminated, but I'd rather have you tell the truth at this hearing and hope that they save you, as opposed to just lying about it, because if they find out that you lie, then that's automatic termination. Right. And you brought me back to memory lane there, man. That was too. I had to dig those out, but interestingly enough, that was back in 2011, so it's been what about. Yeah, it's been about 12 years.
12 years, yeah. Hey, well, I'm glad I can dig up some good war stories then. We're going to pause for the cause here. Sergeant B. Safe's going to go to a commercial, and we're going to come right back and talk about how you kind of came to the other side of the coin and start defending police officers going through misconduct hearings. We'll be right back. Hey, how you guys doing? This is Sergeant B. Safe, and I'm back in the office again. I know the brand new year has already started, and we're well into 2023. And guess what? It will soon be getting warm outside, and you'll be wanting to do outdoor activities. Be mindful of your surroundings and the company you keep. And if you have to go out by yourself, always keep a vigilant eye. I want you guys to remain safe. Here, I'll give you a scenario. This good citizen decided to take advantage of the warm weather and went for a jog.
Look at this guy not paying attention, looking like a straight victim.
And here comes treacherous Tony on the prowl. Fortunately, I have with me Captain Chaos and his K9 Kraken.
This is your captain speaking.
And we'll work together to apprehend Treacherous Tony before he does something dangerous. Put him up, Treacherous Tony. You're coming with me.
All right. I give up. I won't do it again.
Listen to Sergeant Be Safe. He gives the best safety tips.
Hey, thank you very much. Take it from Captain Chaos and me. I'm Sergeant Be Safe. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Subscribe now.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We have Marlon Mariachi here, and we were just talking about police misconduct and how he did investigations on the side of admin and the chief of police for those kind of investigations, and he gave two good stories from that. Now we're going to flip the script, and we're going to look at the other side of the challenge coin, and we're going to see how it was to actually defend individual officers against misconduct and see what that and those incidents were like. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So here in the Los Angeles Police Department, we have a section called Officer Rep Section, and it's a full-blown section with, like, I think at one point we had about 10 in the unit, a whole bunch of sergeants with a couple of police officer trainees. But our sole purpose was to, first of all, you got to know everything and anything that there is to know about peace officers' Bill of Rights. So that's automatic. You have to know the officer's rights. Here in California, we call it, what I just mentioned, short for that is POBRA. So you got to be familiar with these particular rights. And I'm sure they have something in Pennsylvania as they do in other states as well.
Mm-hmm.
But our primary purpose of the unit was to respond to critical incidents. OISs, officer-involved shootings, being the most popular because they happen more often than an in-custody death or something else, right?
Right.
And so in the LAPD, when you get involved in an OIS, the attorney is going to roll out. Of course, IA is going to be there and do what they have to do.
Right.
But the attorney is going to roll out. Now, with that being said, what IA, which is Force Investigation Division, a whole bunch of these detectives, they like to throw a really wide net. When I say a wide net is basically we want to be able to interview and hear from not just the shooting officer, not also we don't want to hear just from the partner officer. We want to hear from the people who actually heard it, right? The officers that actually saw and heard it.
Mm-hmm.
We also want to interview the airship because we have that luxury when you have the airship. So you have the tactical flight officer and the pilot, right? Because they were there. And whoever else is deemed to be substantially involved.
Right.
And
okay.
So the attorney gets paid for just doing the interview with the shooting officer and the shooting officer only. Granted, if the OIS happens to be two shooting officers, then the attorney's going to have to represent both.
Okay.
But all the other percipient witnesses that I just described to you, that's our job. So we have to be there and go through this whole process. So I had the ability to pretty much kind of walk you through the whole process from the minute that the officer pulled the trigger up until Internal Affairs says, you know what, we're done with this investigation. And let me tell you, it's a lengthy one.
I bet.
It's very precise. It's very frame by frame. And so the preparation for these interviews requires a lot of time. It's time consuming, and you really have to know what prepping is all about. Now, body-worn video has definitely helped with the prepping. So what we'll do is we will watch body-worn video even before we actually go on the record with a compelled interview. And so that was our primary duty. And you can imagine, the experience I got from rolling to a lot of these. And so once that actual OIS is done and completed, it goes up after 8 months to a board. It's what we call the User Force Review Board. And in this 5-panel member, they're pretty much going to determine 3 things and 3 things only. 1, drawn and exhibiting. If the drawn and exhibiting is going to be in policy or out of policy, your tactics. Mm-hmm. Your tactics being if you substantially deviated from department policy and procedure. And if you did deviate substantially, if you will, can you justify that deviation?
Mhm.
And if you can justify that deviation, guess what? It'll be in policy. And last but not least is the use of deadly force. Now, here in California, AB 392, which is pretty much the revamp of 835 APC, which is the definition of the use of force policy, has completely changed the game in January 2020.
Okay.
And so you really have to know, number one, the law. You got to know your policies, and you really have to prep and really get into the roots of how to prepare for these interviews. So I have a lot of experience in doing so. Now, in terms of defending officers in these alleged misconduct, well, I can tell you, let's see, my second tour was in 2017, and I was there for a couple of years. I actually did 5 admin appeals. We appealed 5 different cases where we turned around and we pretty much won. Basically, we told Internal Affairs that you got it wrong. And it just so happens, because we're such a big machine, I mean, you know this, we're 9,000 strong. We have about over 22 different divisions, precincts.
Right.
And so sometimes the IA gets done and completed and adjudicated and analyzed right there in-house. In other words, it doesn't go to an Internal Affairs division. It's done right there in the division. And a lot of these cats just get it wrong. So since I worked IA, what I would tell officers, that they would call me up and say, "Hey, Sarge, man, I got this sustained complaint." "Okay, what did you get?" "Oh, I got these 2 neglected duties allegations, and this is bullshit. You know, they didn't do this." So this is what I would say. I said, "Look, check this out. I want you to read that entire investigation from beginning to end, soup to nuts, with a fine-tooth comb, A to Z. And then I want you to ask yourself, in those 2 allegations, if you tell yourself after reading all this and say to yourself, I didn't do this, then come see me and we'll appeal it. You know, we'll do a scally, but we'll appeal it."
Right.
But if you tell yourself that, you know what, I did it, because sustained means that it actually occurred. Unfounded means that it never occurred.
Okay.
So you got to ask yourself, if you did this, then there's not much I can do for you. But if you didn't do it, then come see me, and here we go. So I can tell you, out of the 5 cases that I appealed, we won them all. We got them down. We got them overturned from sustained to unfounded. And man, these dudes were happy, because the type of service and that type of experience and that type of process, if you will, that's what gives IA a bad name. And
right.
As much as I hate to say this, I'll be the first one to tell you that more often than not, we get it wrong. We do. We get it wrong. Now, with that, as saying that we get it wrong, you also got to know that back in, I can only, you can quote me on this, from 2011 to 2015, we used to have over 3,000 citizen complaints a year.
Wow.
But here's the deal. Out of those 3,000, 96.4% of those complaints come back unfounded. So what does that tell you? What that tells you is that a lot of people that are out there that want to make complaints against police officers, saying, "Oh, they got me out of the car, they threw me up against the wall, they were rude to me," all sorts of allegations. More often than not, as you can tell just based on those percentages, let's just say those stats, it just didn't happen. Right. But we have to worry about that 4%. Of course we do.
There and details, the devil's in the detail itself.
The devil's in the details.
Yeah. And I know with any department, you're going to have those ramp them up guys from the public, and not giving a bad light to the public, but you know, there sometimes when your freedom is being taken away, you get into your emotions and you take what the officer's doing as a person, as opposed to someone performing under the performances of their duty in the badge. And you know what? Yeah, I think you did twist my arm a little hard, and I'm going to make a complaint about it. And as you said, okay, we'll take it all the way up, investigate it. No, body cam shows, video shows, testimony shows that you applied the handcuffs properly, did not twist the wrist in an inappropriate direction, and it's been shown that, so unfounded, which would be a good deal.
Absolutely. A lot of the times, again, when it comes to stuff that you did on duty, tactics, handcuff procedures like you just mentioned, or anything of that sort, look, man, we can review body worn video all day.
Mhm.
And that's the problem. The problem is that people review body worn video. There's some agencies that I talk to that I've been teaching and I wish my agency would do this, is that, Mr. Smith wants to walk in the front desk and say, you know what? These officers 2 days ago threw me up against the wall when I was at 7-Eleven at the liquor store.
Uh-huh.
For no reason. They threw it against the wall. Okay, what were their names? Oh, these are their names. What time did it happen? This is what it happened. Okay, you know what, sir? Why don't you give me about 48 hours and I'll call you back, and I'm going to review the body worn video. And so you go review the body worn video, you call Mr. Smith 48 hours later and say, you know what, Mr. Smith? What you were telling me didn't quite go down like that, because I just got done reviewing the body worn video. So here's what we can do. Why don't we go back? You can come in right now, meet me in the lobby, go in the room right now. We'll watch the body worn video, and you tell me what it is that we're missing here. But of course, Mr. Smith's going to be like, you know what? He starts moonwalking, and he's out. He's like, I'm out of here.
Good deal.
And we should do that more often.
Yeah. That would thwart a lot of right there. 48 hours to mitigate all that. Yeah.
That's what in our world we call demonstrably false. And it's demonstrably false. Guess what? I'm going to tell you, let's not waste our time and let's just move on, because we know that police work, especially today, it's just so difficult. There's so many challenges that we face.
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion.
And speaking of police work today, I know I used to coach football, and I say that to little league football, midget football is what we call it here. And I say that to say a lot of the kids that I used to coach are now young adults, where they're either freshmen in high school or sophomore in college, that age group. And some they'll watch the replay and they'll ask, I'm really not feeling law enforcement. I'm really not feeling cops, especially the way the world is. I was before, but I'm not, or I'm kind of leaning halfway on the fence, halfway off. Some are in the military, and they're like, okay, I don't want to do military, run the full 20 years. I may get out. Why should I get in law enforcement, or what do I need to be prepared for if I do want to get into a career in law enforcement? Can you help them out and give them a little suggestions?
Yeah, I can tell you that, it's a noble profession, as you heard, us say that in the past. Noble meaning that you're really going to do some good work, man. You're going to help some people out. You want to be able to satisfy your moral character more than anything, right? Mm-hmm. You're doing God's work, man. And let me tell you something. It's an awful world out there, because what we're asking you to do is to risk your life to save someone's life. That's what it really comes down to. And so what I would say is, if you're going to get into this profession, just know that it's going to be very rewarding. You're going to feel very good about yourself. You're going to be very good about helping out. And if you're anything like what I experienced is, men, and I'm not trying to be sexist here, but, we are pretty selfish. A lot of us are pretty selfish. I know I've heard that in the past and in my relationships. And I can tell you that law enforcement has,
I've heard that too.
I'm sure you heard that too, where, law enforcement has definitely developed me into a way better person.
Right.
Why? Right. Because there's been times, especially out in the streets, where even though I was thinking about myself, man, I want to get off and I want to get out of here, man. I want to go hang out with the boys, go to the club, whatever the case may be. But here I am in a situation where I'm helping someone out. So when I'm driving home after that shift, I think to myself, you know what? This is just bettering me. So just from a natural men's perspective, it's just going to make you a better person. It's going to make you a better father, a better friend. It's going to help you out in your personal life. Now, what we have today that we didn't have 24, 25 years ago is there's a lot of mentoring. There's a lot of wellness. There's a lot of people that are going to be out there to help you. I mean, you know this, where I look on LinkedIn, and there's companies that actually have coaches, but they have life coaches. They actually have like law enforcement coaches. They didn't have that stuff when I came on the job.
Yep.
Oh, I'll give you another example, like the show Billions. I don't know if you watch Billions or not, but the show Billions, it's an awesome show, but it's about the whole show is about the owner of a stock. He's into stocks. He's like this billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
And all his workers are sitting there, just hustling to, deal with getting accounts, and just like a stockbroker would do, right? But they actually have a psychiatrist on the second floor in the show. And so when you're all stressed out, you can walk in there and just and talk. Case in point, Major League Soccer. I didn't know this, but a lot of professional sports, I'm sure they have this in the NBA as well as the NFL, they actually have sports psychologists. Each team has psychologists. Why? Because you deal with all the stress
Right.
every single day. And who am I going to go talk to? Yeah, you can talk to your buddy about it, but you really need a professional.
Right.
And so any young person that's trying to come on the job now, we're definitely better equipped to deal with the mental aspect
Mm-hmm.
of law enforcement. If that kind of helped you answer the
Yeah.
question.
Absolutely. And it kind of leads into the next question as well. The flip side of that challenge coin are those who are seasoned veterans who experience, COVID and experience protests, riots, and things like that. I believe most of this generation, the generation that dealt with the Rodney King era, is probably retired out by now. I think 9/11 and other incidents may have happened where recently I would say that the COVID-19 incident is probably the most pressing incident, where most of the seasoned vets are just like, if I can get out, I'm getting out right now. They're quiet quitting. They're just not dealing with it anymore. What would you say to those guys who may be 15, 20 years in the game and that could hang on or kind of teetering in and out the field and they're ready to let it go? What kind of advice would you give them?
You know what? If after 20 years, well, the majority of officers are coming up on 20 years, that's when retirement starts kicking in.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the ability to do your finances and crunch the numbers and want to get out, great. But if you don't, and you see yourself wanting to do this, just know that each year, or as the years go by, it's a better way of saying it, is laws change and things change.
Yeah.
Police work is not what it used to be. So you have to have the ability to adapt. And if you don't have that willpower to do so, then perhaps maybe you want to make room for the young officers.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that we're losing a lot of seasoned veterans.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's because of politics. It's unfortunately because what happened with George Floyd, the defunding, and all this stuff that has just really plagued and has caused such a downward spiral for our profession, to the point where, look at us now. I mean, there's not, when I scroll through LinkedIn, there's not one department that says either we're completely just, we're in a hiring crisis. I just saw one now where there was a department where, hey, we got to cut 3 other units because I got to send my officers back to patrol. So
right.
That's a tough decision, man. You know what? I would say hang in there. For me, I had a different calling. I didn't want to leave law enforcement. I just wanted to do it in a different capacity. I went to law school. At some point, I was going to go back and work for my union to be a police attorney. I'm all about misconduct. I'm all about this discipline. I just love this stuff to the point where I teach it, and it's needed. It's so much. As a matter of fact, I just had a case not even a month ago where a young 2-year officer here in the LAPD gets a hold of me, and we go over, we read his case, and we go over the allegations, and I'm like, it doesn't sound right. You know what? Well, let's write a skeletal response. Okay, so I showed him how to write a skeletal response. I told him, hey, these are the kind of issues that you want to address.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you turn this into your captain and drop off the copy to your captain, and go to your captain and say, this is what I feel is right. And lo and behold, he texts me about 2 weeks later and says, you know what, if it wasn't for your help, I got these allegations overturned. So, this is my thing, man. And you know what, for me, it's something that I always will be dear to me. In my current assignment, I got promoted to lieutenant, and I work at a major university, which for whatever reason, I can't always say, well, I forgot to put an application. Well, it's not that I forgot that I put in an application. It's just that the application I put in for this particular job was like so long ago, and they called me 6 months later and they offered me an interview, and I'm like, man, should I do this? But the Lord's listening. I have faith in this door that's opening for me, and it's 6 months have gone by, and it's been a great decision. Only because, again, I get to provide that leadership. I get to teach and really get to know about, get to show them, meaning this organization and all these universities, about police misconduct, and we just keep going, man.
Gotcha. Well, congratulations to you, and thank you for continuing on the fight.
We got a lot of work to do. I got to tell you, you know what, Clee, shows like this platform and others are so important. I can tell you that during the months that I was retired, I went on this tour and really did my research on these police podcasts, and for whatever reason, not everybody was talking about this internal affairs, disciplinary issues. It's just not a topic that's that I believe is untapped. Not many people talk about it, so I just appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that we talked before. It's interesting because it's not something that I would actually think. It's not something that I would think of right off the bat until you brought it up. I'm like, yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, just to think about that, the stories that come with it, what is misconduct, what isn't misconduct, and teaching about it, and knowing how things are done internally before they actually hit the mainstream. I think that's a great way to learn and great things to hear about, because you need to learn about all aspects of the job, being a first responder.
Yeah, and that's a very, very important one, because a lot of these times when you were brought up on these allegations of misconduct, man, you don't know who's writing it. And you and I both know words have meanings, man. Words have meanings. Don't be putting in words that you can't explain or that you think are right. And just because you wrote it, what makes you think that you actually are writing this in a way where it's not one-sided, it's not conclusory, right? And it could be biased. I don't know that, so let me take a look at it.
Right. So is this what you teach when you're with the Savage Training Group? Is this the instructions or the courses that you teach with class?
Yes. So Scott and I met, and one of the things that we decided to come up with is design this course where in day one, we're really going to teach majority of the audience is sergeants. So if you're listening out there and you're a new sergeant or an officer that's on the sergeant promotional list, or even a seasoned sergeant, because what we realize is that there's a lot of small agencies that they have one sergeant or maybe two, and you've probably never done an IA in the past. So we designed it in a way where we're going to teach you how to do an intake, the pits and falls, the do's and don'ts of an intake. Then we're going to move into the investigative section of this. So we're going to teach you how to actually investigate, what questions to ask, pitfalls, do's and don'ts. In the middle of those investigations, we're going to pretty much hone in on Peace Officers' Bill of Rights, because the last thing you want to do is conduct an investigation where you're just crossing the line, and the next thing you know, it's going to be out of statute. There might be some issues. Those things are very, very important. And then last but not least, we're going to do what we call presentations, because here's one of the things that we realized also is that sometimes when you're that sergeant that actually, it's your product, right? It's your investigation. You can turn it into your lieutenant or your captain, but it just so happens that in that small agency, no one's around. That captain's on vacation, the lieutenant's not there. And that chief is walking down the hallway, comes up to your cubicle and says, "Hey, Clee, all right, you wrote this investigation, so tell me, is it going to be sustained or unfounded? And if it's sustained, what kind of penalty do you think I should recommend?" And then you got to break it down and start spitting and tell them, "Hey, this is the reasons I came up with all this." So we'll teach you how to do that too, how to present and try to identify. And at some point, you're going to have to render an opinion as to why you feel that these allegations should either be sustained or unfounded, if that kind of makes sense. So that's day one, and it bleeds right into day two, where we do all these OAS protocols with my partner, Sergeant James Stagini, who's awesome at doing this. His actually sole job is to respond to OIS. So he's part of the shooting team. So both of us have teamed up, and we did a class in March, and it was a success. I mean, we got nothing but really, really good feedback, and we got a whole bunch coming up, man. So hopefully one day we can head out to Pennsylvania and see what we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to get it done. Got to see you work the magic face to face.
Yes, absolutely. Would love that.
Perfect. And stand by. We're gonna have a quick commercial break by Sergeant Be Safe, and we're gonna jump right into last couple questions or last couple comments before we wrap up. Stand by.
Hello, ma'am. Send me gift cards and your credit card numbers over the phone.
Once Chance Wilder gets all of her information, we're going on a shopping spree. I'm talking Gucci, Fendi, and Prada.
I'll send the police to your house.
You mean to tell me that if I don't send you my credit card numbers over the phone, you're gonna come to my house and arrest me?
Absolutely. I love shopping on Amazon Prime, especially when everything is free 99.
I can't believe people are so gullible.
Sergeant, be safe. You're right on time. Can you help me?
I sure can. Hello, Wild Chance.
Oh no, Sergeant,
That's right.
be safe.
Never give out any credit card information over the phone.
I can't believe you led Be Safe right to us. Run, you fool.
Me? It isn't my fault. It was your idea.
You're caught and going back to jail. Remember, folks, don't buy gift cards and give that or credit card information over the phone, especially to a stranger. It could be Chance Wilder and his partner getting ready to rob you blind. Remember, take it from me, Sergeant Be Safe, and that'll be your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Subscribe now.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We've got Marlon Mariachi right here. We had a wonderful interview. We got to discuss a lot of things, IA, both sides of the coin, his experiences in law enforcement and things along those lines. Through the course of conversation, I may have forgot to ask a question, or I may have jogged your memory on some things, some topics or some issues that you may want to have addressed. Is there anything that you would like to say or put out there right now? The floor is yours.
No, man, just happy to be on this podcast, chopping it up about internal affairs, discipline, how we defended officers, how we prosecuted officers, issues that are very, very important to the public when we start talking about gaining the public trust. I do know that, just throughout the nation, everybody seems to always criticize us and scrutinize how we do police work. And I think the best way to kind of explain ourselves is to have these platforms where we can talk about some internal issues.
Mm-hmm.
If you like to ask about any type of internal issues or what you think my opinion is about certain police functions, be more than happy to answer any of those questions. But yeah, no, we pretty much covered a lot, and I'm pretty excited to get this going finally.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's nice to meet you again, even though it's digitally face to face. Have you on the platform to learn more about you and learn more about your experiences. I appreciate you making time to come here on the platform and blessing the show.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. Appreciate it, Clay.
Absolutely.
Sure. Any questions from the audience that anybody's live or?
No. Looks like we may get some in the replay, but there's no outstanding questions. I was waiting for them to come in to see if there was anything that I may not have covered that it may have been a topic at hand, but doesn't look like we have any right now.
Yeah, and so before we wrap it up, I do know that one of the questions that we had was how's law enforcement changing?
Yes.
The changes that need to take place. Very,
yes.
Very good question. It's changing in the right direction. I really, truly believe that. We have way more resources, and now that we did 25 years ago, I do know that we headed in the right direction. I feel like there's been a paradigm shift where back in 2020, as you know, the George Floyd incident pretty much changed a lot of these a lot of the way that people perceive police officers, right? The opinion of public courts, the public, right? The perception, which we know it sometimes becomes a reality, but you also have to understand is that police work in of itself, it's not something that it's not textbook. Doesn't always look right, and you're risking pretty much your life to stop people or to stop a situation from getting worse, and unfortunately, that has no price in it. So, what changes need to take place? Well, I would hope that in the future there is legislature that would be more lenient, and when I say by leniency, is that they allow us to have more flexibility when it comes to applying force. What I can tell you from the state of California is we're at a point now with 835 APC, which is your Assembly Bill 392, where it is so detailed, which I'm not against, but it's to the point where you really have to know what you're getting yourself into. And if you don't know the law as it pertains to what you're limited of doing, you're gonna see yourself in a lot of trouble. I mean, and I say this a lot with a lot of my colleagues, is you're just one incident away from being criminally filed on, and you know this. We're at a point now where you get involved in an OIS, and chances are you got criminal filings coming your way. Even though you actually did the right thing under those circumstances at the time that you actually pulled the trigger. So that's how it's changing. Now, is that good? I don't know. Is it bad? I don't know. I don't think it's a matter of good and bad. It's just that if you get into this profession, you really have to know what you're getting yourself involved into as it pertains to the law. So
absolutely.
That's very crucial. It's very paramount, and I want to really point that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I know that was a question that was overlooked, and I'm glad that you brought it back up. I appreciate that because it's very important. That's one of the questions, believe it or not, that get asked a lot of me or officers that I know that are currently working. How do you see the job changing? Do you think it's changing for the better or for the worse? And I as much as the body cams were not wanted when they first came, I think they're very important because, like you said, during IA investigations, it has exonerated more officers than I think it's actually punished or chastised. Just because I know from working working a supervisor on my platoon, just from allegations that come in or things that were said or just preparing your report, and you kind of see one thing, and in the moment you see it and visualize it one way, and like, yeah, the guy ran away, he had on a red shirt. I'm like, are you sure it was red? I'm like, it was half of a second and he ran away, it was red. And honestly, whoever's saying that may actually think it was a red shirt, and then they come back and watch it, it was blue. I'm like, I don't know how I missed it, because you got this house on fire, you got that boat collapsing, you got these kids running, you got so many stimuli going on that you may have missed a specific detail. So minor reason, you get the report correct. Major reason is because something happened that you can say, yes, it happened this way. Someone else comes in and said, no, it did not happen this way. And like you gave the example as well, you can actually go step back, review the body cam, or a third party can review the body cam, someone who wasn't at the scene, and say, oh, I see it happening as X, Y, and Z, not A, B, and C.
Yeah, no, that's hit the nose in the butt, man.
Yeah.
Spot on with that. And as much as people don't like to, not people, but a lot of officers are, I don't like body worn video. It's not matter you not liking it. If anything, embrace it. Embrace it to the point where you're going to become that, that ESPN sports colorful commentator. Let them know. Nothing wrong with that. If anything, now that's what I will say. Where we did have it, over, 2 decades ago, which is communication. I think communication's, key. It's key in police work. It certainly is key in our personal lives as well. But in terms of even in body-worn video, if you can communicate about what you're actually going to do or what you actually did, or what, right now, look at the behavior of Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, why are you acting this way? If you can narrate all that,
Yeah,
you're gonna be okay, man. That's just the way it is, and it's all for the better.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
what it really comes down to is transparency, right? We keep asking for it. Well, you know what? Here you have it.
Yeah, there it is. Yep. Good. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad we didn't overlook that because that was highly important. Thank you for that. And this platform, we go live weekly. We go live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time once a week. Like I said, the schedule for June hasn't been done. So if there's anyone out there that was interested in coming on the platform, let me know now. If not, there's the potential lineup ready to go, but we will still be going. I'll be traveling for some of the month of June, so things will be very sporadic. But I got some good treats coming to you. Some new Sergeant Be Safe cartoons in season 2. Got a special treat for all the month of June. I don't want to say what it is. I'm highly excited for it, so you guys stay tuned. This right here, this is Black and Blue. This is the platform where if you're looking to get into police work and you have questions, this is your platform. If you're already in police, the occupation of law enforcement as a first responder, this is your platform as a seasoned vet. If you're with the public and you're just wondering how we get along, how we do things, why we do things, this is our effort to humanize the badge, to have a one-on-one. This is your platform, so make sure you guys are tuning in. This is Coach Cleese, your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker saying 10-4, over and out.
Insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Sergeant Be Safe here, and I'm stuck in the office. I'm stuck. You want to know why? I'll be completing reports for stolen vehicles. Yeah, that's right, stolen vehicles. I tell people all the time to lock their doors and put away their valuables. However, this continues to happen. Do you know that about approximately 95% of all auto thefts can be prevented? Here, let's go for a walk and I'll show you a few examples. Example number 1. You go to the store and you leave your car running. Little do you know that Chance Wilder's on the prowl. He sees your car running with the door unlocked, gets in it, and they're off! At the start.
Oh no!
Frustrating. Let's move on to example number 2. Ooh. You're at home and the car's parked for the day. But you feel safe and secure and believe this could never happen to me. And there's Rob You Blind going from car to car. Just got caught though.
Poopa, be safe.
Hands up. You're coming with me.
Ooh.
People leave their car doors unlocked and believe it or not, their keys in them. Here's video footage of someone going onto someone's driveway and entering their car, and guess what? Stealing that too. Even if you don't keep your car key, don't keep your spouse's key in the vehicle either. Believe it or not, they park right beside you. So therefore, take the extra step, lock your vehicle, and take your keys inside. So here's a little bit of information for you. If your car is ever stolen, and then I find it and recover it, it's usually not in the same condition that it once was. It could have been involved in a motor vehicle accident because of joyriding, or just have more dents, scratches, and damage on it. You'll get an incident report and a tow bill. Your insurance company may cover the towing and recovering fee, but you could also have to come out of pocket with some extra expenses. So now let's move on to example number 3. Parking lots at major businesses are prime targets. Lock your doors, put valuables away, park in well-lit areas, and definitely do not, I cannot stress it any harder, leave your vehicle running in the parking lot. Because no matter how many times Rob You Blind and Wild Chance go to jail, they will always take advantage of a prime opportunity to take your valuables or steal your vehicle. Don't be an easy target. Hands up, you both are coming with me. Ooh. These are just a few examples of how you can protect yourself and be vigilant with your property. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Subscribe now.